Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. I don't know about you, but my favorite time of the year to watch movies, and in particular horror movies, is over the Christmas season. I don't know why exactly, but there's just something about the cold weather, the little lights and the early nightfall that sort of just turn on all of my horror switches. It's also a time of the year where a lot of movies are released, and in particular Christmas-themed horror movies. Which brings us here today. Now the next 10 films are a personal selection of horror movies that I feel can be enjoyed over the Christmas period. Like with a lot of the lists that I do, they're a mixed bag of oldies and newbies, psychos and slashers, but in this particular case, they're all in some way meant to evoke the Christmas spirit. And of course, since this is a list of horror movies, that spirit might just be an evil one. And maybe this list will make you reconsider what exactly is meant by Santa's sleigh. So as we work our way through to the number one greatest Christmas horror movie of all time, I'd like to invite all of you to share your crazy, wild Christmas horror movies in the comments below. It's always nice hearing from you guys. So on that note, let's get out our cheap wrapping paper, our reindeer antlers, and maybe a mug of hot chocolate, and let's dive straight into the Den of Horror's top 10 greatest Christmas horror movies. So kicking things off at number 10 is 2015's A Christmas Horror Story. It's an impressive anthology of 4 Christmas tales, and nasty Christmas tales. Now I get that these short film anthologies are not necessarily everybody's bag, but I promise you this film does have something special going for it, in that the 4 very well shot Christmas tales are all tied together by a simple but very nifty premise. A down-and-out DJ is stuck doing the long, dark midnight shift over Christmas Eve when he starts receiving notices of some strange disturbances going down at the local shopping mall in the town of Bailey Down. So as the 4 stories unfold, we are treated to this macabre ensemble of evil ghosts, a nasty Krampus, and even some zombie elves. Yes, that's right, I said zombie elves. It's a solid anti-Christmas movie that I felt was maybe a little bit light on suspense and scares, but it definitely made up for it with its rich, airy atmosphere and an insane amount of violence. Now at number 9, we have the only film that is not strictly a Christmas movie, but I simply had to include 2021's Werewolves Within, which I have done a review on, so if you haven't seen that, go and check it out. But the reason why I included it on this list is because, for one, I happened to watch it for the first time over Christmas, and also because of its snowed-in, cozy small town setting, a small town that is rocked by a series of gruesome murders. Werewolves Within just so strongly lends itself to being watched over the Christmas period. Werewolves Within also succeeds where a lot of movies stumble. For one, it's actually a good adaptation of a video game. It also happens to be one of the few really good werewolf movies, and for a film that claims to be a horror comedy, it actually successfully manages to be both scary and funny at the same time, which a lot of horror comedies don't manage. So with Werewolves Within, you get a passionate, fun and enjoyable take on the werewolf mythology. You get some great performances, and it's also a movie that offers you a rich Christmassy atmosphere. And for fans of the werewolf genre such as myself, it finally gives us something to howl about. Taking a break from the fun and gory Christmas movies, The Lodge enters the fray to add some serious psychological horror to this Christmas list. Riley Keough gives a powerhouse performance as a soon-to-be stepmother stranded with her fiancé's 2 kids in a remote lodge over the Christmas period. Her character slowly unravels as she begins experiencing some alarming and unexplained events rooted in her past. I felt that The Lodge kind of took its cue from those old Italian giallo movies from the 70s, films like Black Sunday with its dark atmospheric horror. It's also one of those movies that sort of sit with you long after you've watched it. It kind of rattled me, at least, at a subconscious level. So if you want a movie that's heavy on cheap thrills, The Lodge is not for you. But if you want your Christmas filled with some stylish, tense dread, then I highly recommend The Lodge. At number 7, we have a film about a novelist who writes cheesy vampire novels who retreats to her lakeside cabin over Christmas only to come face to face with a real-life vampire. Now, there's this moment in Sean Nichols' horror comedy Red Snow where his lead character, played by Denise Kissner-Ross, first realizes that the injured bat she is trying to nurse back to health is in fact a charming vampire. The moment is so well set up and well acted that I was honestly forced to enjoy this movie despite all of my preconceptions. Now, although, at least in my opinion, Red Snow is kind of this awkward blend between Misery and Twilight, and it doesn't always manage to balance the horror and the comedy elements, despite all of that, Red Snow still manages to be quirky, enjoyable, and genuinely charming in its own kind of way. So definitely a recommendation from my side and deserving of its number 7 spot on this list. High up at number 6 is the Tim Burton movie that is actually not really a Tim Burton movie. A Nightmare Before Christmas, story by Tim Burton, but directed by the underappreciated Henry Selick, is a must for a list like this. It is not strictly a horror movie, but A Nightmare Before Christmas revels in and celebrates the atmosphere, the aesthetic, and the joy of the horror genre. It is a brilliantly made, brilliantly scored, stop-motion classic that has always felt wonderfully nostalgic, at least to me. Featuring an array of werewolves, vampires, reanimated corpses, and dancing skeletons. I mean, what more could you want over Halloween or Christmas? A Nightmare Before Christmas is the perfect movie to watch as the snow is gently drifting down outside and you're settling in to start or finish a Christmas horror movie marathon. Now, if you're a fan of horror as well as Home Alone, then Better Watch Out might be the perfect Christmas movie for you. It's a sinister story about a babysitter who suddenly finds herself having to protect a 12-year-old boy against a gang of nasty intruders. It's rich with that typical Christmas feeling. It has some very, very genuine tension, if not a little bit silly at times, but what makes this movie worthwhile is its great performances, some jump out of your seat scares, as well as surprisingly emotional undercurrents. So from my side, Better Watch Out makes for some worthwhile Christmas entertainment. Now, Josh Lobo's impressive debut, I Trapped the Devil, is as much about Christmas as it is about deadly family secrets. Matt and his wife pay a Christmas visit to his brother Steve, only to find out that Steve is hiding a shocking secret. Now, there's a lot to like about I Trapped the Devil, but what I seriously enjoyed was Scott Poitras' crazy, unhinged, manic performance. With its 80s horror movie slasher feel, I Trapped the Devil starts out innocently enough, but soon plunges you into a sinister nightmare of chaos and dread. If you want a little bit of psychological and austere horror this Christmas, then I Trapped the Devil is the one for you. Now, as we slowly approach the pinnacle of this Christmas horror movie list, I can say that no Christmas horror movie list is truly complete or worth its salt if it doesn't feature Joe Dante's classic outing Gremlins. Now, yes, most of us watched Gremlins when we were kids, and yes, it's probably not the most disturbing movie on this list. It certainly remains one of the most beloved movies of all time. With its mogwai-spawned horde of little monsters unleashed on a snowy town over Christmas, Gremlins has practically everything that at least I love about horror movies. It is dark, it is scary, it is pacey, atmospheric and immersive, but it's also quirky and fun, mishmashing the sentimentality of Spielberg, the quirkiness of Ghostbusters, and also the aesthetics of those old golden age horror classics. Gremlins is practically a flawless black comedy horror. And now, nearly 40 Christmases on, no Christmas Eve is truly complete without Gizmo and those cheeky, razor-toothed gremlins. Now, some of you will argue that number 2 on this list, Bob Clark's 1974 classic Black Christmas, is the ultimate Christmas horror movie and should in fact be number 1 on the list. I'm not going to argue with you too much over there. And if you feel like reminding me about the fact that I forgot to mention Black Christmas on my top 50 greatest horror movies of all time list, feel free to do so. Black Christmas is not only rated as one of the most unsettling and most disturbing horror movies of all time, it is also rated as one of the greatest. It inspired John Carpenter's Halloween as well as Friday the 13th, and is about a group of sorority sisters that are stalked by a deranged serial killer during the Christmas season. It was a forerunner and a pioneer of the slasher genre, and I can tell you one more thing for sure, that this Christmas in my home I will definitely be watching Black Christmas again, and if you haven't seen it, you should check it out now. Released in 1984, some 10 years after Black Christmas, underappreciated and underrated, my favorite Christmas horror movie of all time, and the #1 horror movie on this list, was actually outgrossing A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was released on the same day before the film was pulled from theaters due to its depiction of a serial killer axing his victims to death while dressed up in a Santa Claus outfit. Silent Night, Deadly Night was and still remains a very controversial movie for a number of reasons. Blood-splattering violence aside, some have claimed that it was based on actual events, and it also seemed to gleefully hack away at the tacky glitz and growing commercialism surrounding Christmas. Because of its extreme amount of violence and its sinister take on Christmas, many critics called Silent Night, Deadly Night the worst movie of all time. Me, personally, I absolutely loved it, and I also appreciate how unique, how evocative, and how notorious it was in what it was trying to say about Christmas. Absolutely loved it, and you know what? As a horror movie fan, there's something macabrely cool about watching Santa Claus turn into an axe murderer. So there you have it, everyone, my top 10 greatest Christmas horror movies of all time. If you are looking for something to watch this festive season, then maybe you would like to start with one of the films that you saw on this list. And if you do, let me know what you thought of it. And please feel free to share your own Christmas horror movies in the comments. I know that I certainly, for one, would like to see what you're going to be watching, and maybe I'll watch a few of your suggestions myself. By the way, if you are new to this channel, then please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate the support. Maybe you'd like to like or share this content. All of it helps in its own little way. Anyway, to all of you that have subscribed, thank you very, very much. All of you that have been chatting with me in the comments, you guys have really opened up my eyes to a lot of new horror movies, and I kind of hope that I've done the same for you. Anyway, on that note, I wish you all a Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And wherever you are, whatever you are doing, please stay safe, stay happy, stay merry. Most of all, stay horror. Cheers, everyone. Merry Christmas.